You should be grateful we even let you keep your seat at the table, sweetheart. Your brother saved this firm while you were playing scientist in the lab. The least you can do is sign the transfer and walk away with your dignity. Those were the words my cousin Julian hissed at me as he stood in my glass-walled office. He was holding a sleek tablet like it was a weapon of war. Behind him, my younger brother Leo sat in my Italian leather chair, the one I bought when we hit our first 10 million in processed payments. He was casually deleting files from my shared drive without even blinking. "Sign it," Leo said, his voice cold and unfamiliar. "We have a stakeholders call at 4 and you aren't on the invite list." I looked at the digital contract, then at my chair, and then at the framed award on the wall for the most innovative Fintech CEO of the year. It was the award Leo had tried to claim as a joint achievement in his last press interview, even though he couldn't explain how our core API actually worked. I grabbed my phone, said nothing, and walked out of the headquarters I had built from a single line of code and a mountain of debt. Before I reveal how I turned their own greed against them, tell me in the comments about a time a family member tried to take credit for your hard work. I read every story and they remind me why I had to fight back. I drove to a small park on the edge of the city. A place where I used to sit and cry when the servers crashed in our first year and we didn't have the money to fix them. I stared at the notification on my phone. They wanted me to hand over my 58% stake in the company for a fraction of its value. Citing family unity as the reason. $15.5 million was the valuation on the table for the upcoming merger. They wanted to push me out before the final signatures were dry so they could split my share of the payout. This wasn't a sudden move. It was a calculated coup. And I had been too focused on the technology to see the knives being sharpened in the boardroom. I started this payment processing firm called Nexus at 26. Leo was younger, always struggling to keep a job. So I brought him in as the head of business development. I thought I was being a good sister. For 3 years he was the face of the company at networking events while I stayed in the back room making sure the system didn't break. I gave him 20% equity as a gift for his loyalty. But money changes the way people look at you. When the merger talks began with a global bank, Leo stopped being my brother and started being a predator. He began holding secret meetings with our angel investors, whispering that I was becoming too difficult to work with and that my vision was holding the company back. He even managed to convince Julian, our legal consultant, to help him craft a narrative that I was mentally checked out. I found out about their plan at midnight through an anonymous tip from a junior developer who had seen Leo's emails. They were planning to use an emergency clause in our shareholder agreement regarding professional misconduct. Leo had been building a fake trail for months. Every time I took a weekend off to avoid a burnout, he logged it as a failure to perform duties. Every time I asked him to handle a client call, he recorded it as evidence that I was unable to lead. He was effectively erasing my contributions while I was busy making the company worth millions. I didn't panic. Instead, I started my own audit. I knew Leo was greedy. And greedy people always leave a trail. I spent the next 6 hours digging through the company's internal logs with a private forensic accountant. Most people don't realize that high-level executive contracts often include a non-compete and non-disclosure clause that triggers immediate forfeiture of shares if violated. I found exactly what I was looking for in the encrypted metadata of Leo's laptop. For the past 6 months, Leo had been receiving monthly consulting fees from our direct competitor. He was selling them our internal growth strategy so they could stay one step ahead of us. He was actively sabotaging the company he was trying to steal just to line his own pockets with extra cash. He hadn't just betrayed me as a sister. He had committed a massive breach of fiduciary duty against every single shareholder. The confrontation happened the next morning in the main boardroom. Leo was sitting at the head of the long marble table looking like he had already won. Julian was there too, ready to read the motion to remove me from the board. I didn't wait for them to start. I opened my laptop and projected a series of bank statements and leaked strategy documents onto the large screen. I showed the room exactly where the competitor's money was going into Leo's private offshore account. I then pointed to Section 9 of our contract. The one regarding gross misconduct and competitive betrayal. Because Leo had been working for the enemy while holding an executive position at Nexus. His shares were subject to immediate clawback and his voting rights were automatically suspended the moment the breach was discovered. The color drained from Leo's face as the investors in the room began to murmur in anger. He tried to claim the documents were forged. But the forensic trail was undeniable. Julian quickly tried to distance himself from the situation, realizing that his own professional license was on the line if he continued to support a fraud. The motion to remove me was dropped instantly. Instead, the board moved to terminate Leo for cause and began the process of seizing his 20% stake. He went from nearly owning a $15 million empire to being a disgraced former employee facing potential lawsuits from the merger partners. The merger closed 3 months later without any further drama. My 58% stake remained intact and the payout was more than I ever dreamed of. I moved to a different coast shortly after the deal was finalized. I didn't leave out of fear. I left because I needed a fresh start away from the toxic shadows of my past. I live in a house by the ocean now. And the only people who have my number are the ones who were there before the money arrived. The lesson is simple. Trust is a beautiful thing, but an airtight contract is better. You have to protect your legacy when things are calm, because when the storm comes, the people you shared your umbrella with might be the ones trying to push you into the rain. I didn't have to destroy Leo. I just had to show everyone the fire he had already started under his own feet.